Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight I got an awesome guest, and I'm excited. It took us probably about a month over, George, I'd say, to line this up. But I have George Murry, and he's author, speaker, and coach of two great books, and I love it. One called Hired, and one called the newer Ignite, Engage, Retain. So, how you doing, George?
Hey, thank you for having me, David. I'm looking forward to listening to the questions and hopefully help some people land jobs.
Oh, we're gonna get them. So we'll be right back after this video.
Wow.
You know, George, I know. I was wait. That's my first time I got to show this tonight.
That's awesome.
How the hell do you even follow up after that?
I don't know. I'm
I
ready to go back into war, right?
yeah, I felt like a gladiator on that thing. I love the Fever app or where Fever or whatever, and that cost me $30 to create with the gentleman.
Wow.
That's it. I
That's
love
worth
it.
it. That's
Oh,
worth
it
it.
does. They do a great job, and you just I just have my vision, and I put that in there for all the words from seeing on LinkedIn, all the pain points,
Yep.
and I saw the video. So, but I want to thank you for coming on tonight, and we're going to get right into it. George, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. George Murray, global operations leader in supply chain, wrote two books, as you talked about. Hired, cut your career search time in half. Walks people through kind of the time that they left their last opportunity to the time that they land their next opportunity. What's all that kind of entail, including the emotional aspect of it. And
Yeah.
then Ignite, Engage, Retain just come out last October, and that's really kind of culmination of my 25 years experience in operations and supply chain, and how do we engage our teams, even if in a hybrid sense, and more importantly, how do we retain them?
I enjoyed. I like the names. You hit it. Hired, cut your career search in half. Ignite, engage, retain. I mean, they're about the best words you can say. We got Joel in the house tonight. Hey, Joel, how's it going, sir? He's on the show on Thursday night. We're gonna be back, but now these are great words. I wanted to ask you. The first question I really wanted to ask you. I think a lot of people ask, what, George, with all your experience, what advice would you give on LinkedIn? You see so many people laid off, so many different stresses. What's the best piece of advice that you can give?
Well, first of all, it's a process, and that was kind of frustrating for my first time in job transition. I was in an unemployment rate of 4.3% back in 2016, thinking, "Hey,
Right.
I'm going to find another job." And what I didn't realize that there was a process to it, and 13 months later, I landed it. So I think understanding first is really just kind of processing it, taking that week to kind of wallow in your pain and everything, but then set a plan in place. That's the one thing I think people don't realize is that you left a scheduled day. You got up at a certain time. You went to work. You had KPIs. You had meetings. That's all wiped out. If you
Right.
don't recreate your scheduled day, before you know it, 3 months go by like that, and you have very little to show for it.
And you have a little show. We got Rob in the house too. Rob's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So good evening, Rob. Rob, please feel free to ask questions. I know you're going to have some. Um, we're talking prior to the show that I see people applying for
Mm.
two, three, 500, 1,000 resumes that they've submitted. And I told you before, in all honesty, I said to myself, I've never found 1,000 jobs. Maybe that's just me, but w- something's wrong.
Well,
There's a
let
disconnect.
me let me let me paint you a picture of that person. They're sitting behind their computer night and day, 12 to 14 hours a day, aimlessly submitting resumes with, the national average of securing a job through a resume is 1%. So they're rolling that dice, right? Getting frustrated in the whole process, complaining, irritating and everything else like that. All the while that the chance of securing your next opportunity nationally average is an 84%. So where should you be spending your time? Networking.
Well, the net is out. Oh, we got Daryl in the house. Daryl's from Texas. So, hey, Daryl, how you doing, sir? Um, so networking.
Yes. I mean, and I was an introvert, believe it or not, back in 2016. I'd rather sit in a corner and not talk to anybody. But through the process and what I've learned from a lot of great people I met, as you talked about earlier and just before the show started, we met a lot of great people. They had all good insight. They've seen a lot of people come before I came and said, here's what we've seen as best practice. And that's kind of what I've taken all into that book. There's more than 24 opportunities to try, because the 3 or 4 things that worked for me in job transition might not work for you. That's why I loaded them all in there.
That's why I put them in. I want to just show everybody. This is the book Hired right here. You can get right on Amazon. Look at that. You can go right on Amazon and get it too. And then the second book, I love Ignite, Engage, Retain. And like I told you before, I love the names. I think they're great. But when you say about networking, what networking is what to you? What do you?
It's building a
What do you
relationship
suggest to
over
somebody?
time. Yeah, it's building a relationship over time. It's not transactional. A lot of times people go into it transactional. They're like one and done. The next time I see you is 3 years from now when you're in another job transition. That's not what networking is. What you're really trying to do is to build a relationship. And what I tell people is you're trying to build coaches, cheerleaders in the workforce. So you have to develop a relationship, and part of the process in the book is how do you walk through that? How do I create lasting relationships? Because a lot of the people that I have met through those job transitions in 2016 are
Right.
literally really good friends of mine now, and more importantly, they're on my personal board of advisors.
So do you suggest reaching out to joining groups on LinkedIn? Like if somebody's just beginning and say, you know what, I didn't realize that I've joined an HR group. I kind of like it because now I went in there and I couldn't believe how many people that I found. I was like, whoa, I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven because there was just a lot of great, I've met 2 already that I've been talking to about for the show. And I never went into groups as much. I mean, what do you suggest on LinkedIn? How do you go about it?
Well, I think, you want to try to find out some of the target companies you have and join those groups. A lot of companies have those groups, like a 3M that did a lot of layoffs just recently.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of those groups, and you can actually gain connections through that and through the relationship that you built over a period of time. And it doesn't take, years when you need a
Right.
job next month. But, I would say a couple of meetings over 3 or 4 months, because right now, well, before the pandemic, it was taking any professional above anywhere from 7 to 12 months to find another opportunity.
Okay.
Just before all these layoffs occurred back in January, it dwindled down to about 3 to 4 months. Now we're probably popping back up to be between what I've been talking to on average of 7 people a week in
Right.
transition. It's probably taken anywhere from 5 to 7 months. It's still not as long as it used to be, but at time. But I think, again, part of the process of the book is once you've got a process, you work your process. Every couple of weeks, you evaluate your process and kind of stop doing the things that aren't working for you and start maybe brainstorming things that you must possibly do. Like one of the examples I say is cold call CEOs. In my background, chief operating officer role,
Right.
CEOs are looking for those people.
To reach out. Daryl says overtime is the issue for the unemployed. If they don't have a solid network, the time to employment is too slow. Yeah,
Absolutely right.
that's,
Absolutely
that's
right.
right there.
But to your point, how to start off, especially if you're an introvert, reach out to family and friends, church members, those types of people that already know you. You already feel somewhat comfortable with them, and kind of share a brief story. And more importantly, what are you looking for? And then those people can introduce you to people. Then you've got a common connection with those individuals, and you can start to build your introvert to be more of an ambivert, know when to be quiet and know when to talk.
Wanted to talk. Now, do you when when you're like, okay, you take a person that's laid off looking for work versus the person that's not happy at work,
Yeah.
in search of work. What is there a difference?
Yeah, I mean, this. You probably spoke to a lot of people. You've got a lot of time when you're not in a job that you're happy with, but you need to keep that job. your kind of time is limited, so you kind of have to structure your day. Like for example, maybe you can turn around and take 3 or 4 networking meetings before work, coffee meetings. Maybe you can take one lunch meeting during the week. But again, you're looking for the caliber of folks. And I always tell people, when you're asking, one of your asks, part of your discussion when you're networking, your ask, know your ask, right? So,
Right.
hey, I'm looking to network, in my example, when I was out in job search, private equity firms, board members, and CEOs. Those are all people that would hire a guy like me.
That hard. That's awesome. Rob says, and this, Rob's been through a lot too. It's frustrating when you put resumes out, you don't hear nothing. Also, when you have an interview and you don't hear nothing back. I think that's that's one of the biggest
Well,
subjects on
It's,
LinkedIn.
it's a proven fact. I talked to a lot of CHROs. That's how I got my second book. I got a lot of input from a lot of CHROs just on culture, et cetera. And one of the things we talked about is these ATS systems.
Right.
Not anybody really likes them, but companies still use them. I think
Yeah.
they weed out the best candidates, and again, you never hear from them.
That's what I'm. And Rob, I know Rob personally, and I know he was the type. He said, when he was looking for work, I just think you need to say to yourself, something's wrong. I'm going to go back to that. What do I need to do now? And like I told you before, I like to invite people on the show, and I get it. Not everybody wants to come on to a video. I get it. But sometimes to me, is you got to try something different.
You gotta put yourself out there.
So could
That's
you
the
break
pain
your
point.
book down? Could you break your book down to it?
Well, the simple thing to me, there's a lot in my book, but I tell people the three things to take away of the book that you should evaluate on a continuous basis if it's not working. Your energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude. If it's not there and you sound like an Eeyore, like oh woe is me, you got to figure out, what do I need to do differently? Do I need to change my morning routine? For me, in my first job transition, I'll be honest, I was not taking care of myself. I wasn't eating right, sleeping right. All that added up to a lot of weight, probably the heaviest I'd ever been. And in 7 months, I self-reflected, I'm going to start walking, awkwardly jogging. In 7 months, I dropped 40 pounds. It's going to help with my energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude. The other two topics are your day in the life. How is your day scheduled? How's your week scheduled? How's your month scheduled? Evaluate that. And then the third thing that I alluded to a little bit earlier, get a personal board of advisors. These are 3 to 5 people that are going to hold you accountable. They're going to listen to you. They're going to give you advice. And when those days and weeks are kind of light as far as introductions, they can help introduce you to other folks.
I never thought of it like that way. Make yourself hold accountable. I like that. So keep it networking with a bunch of friends and just, somebody keeps you here. Rob says, why do people say think outside the box, and what does that mean?
That's a 30-year-old term that doesn't work anymore.
No, I know.
That's one of the words I literally just do not like at all.
I just say the same thing. I'm tired of it because it doesn't work in the box anymore, or whatever you want to say out there like that.
Well, what I've realized in a couple of transitions myself, right? So I practice what I preach. I tell people I'm a practitioner. I'm not a theorist, right? I've been there, I've lived there, and done it. The fact is that what you need to realize is that the competitive landscape changes every 18 to 24 months. So if you were laid off 5 to 10 years ago, don't expect the same process is going to work, right?
Right.
So you've got to be able to figure out, and I always tell people, you got to get out and network. The other thing is understand you want to help people, but this is time for you to take. As one of my great friends that I met in job transition, Greg Rye. Anybody who's in Minneapolis can reach out and tell. He's an ultimate networker. He told me, he's like, George, this is their time for you to take. People are going to understand, right? But you also got to be cordial, you got to be humble, and you got to lean in and listen to people.
Right. Well, listen. I think you talking to my wife. She's always sitting there saying, "Listen, listen, Dave, shut
All
up."
our wives, my wife too, 29 years.
Yeah, it goes in. Daryl asks, how do you choose your BOA, especially for those with few or no relationships?
Well, to me, all my personal board of advisors are all people I met in job transition. It was basically, I needed 3 to 5 people that all didn't think like me. They were all chief operating officers, because they would say, okay, George, you're doing all the right things, yet 9 months later, I'm still not finding a job. So I broke it down. I needed somebody that could help me with social media. So I found somebody, right? Somebody who could have experience to make sure that my LinkedIn algorithms, all that stuff is working for me. I also needed somebody that was going to tell it like it is, that was going to tell me, hey, George, you got to stop crying, right? We all need those people.
Right.
We need the people to kick yourself in the pants. One other gentleman was actually a CEO I cold called. I reached out.
Right.
He actually is the first gentleman that wrote the inside cover of my book. Is
Did he?
Alan McClellan, CEO. Yeah, great guy. He talks about our first meeting and everything else. But he was there to help me just kind of understand the other side of things, right? How do I,
Right.
when I do get interviewed, how do I interview well? And then the other two folks were energy coach, because everybody has, I don't know what's going on with HR, but they still love to send the thanks but no thanks letters on Fridays and
Yeah.
let us simmer all weekend, right? So
Yeah.
you need somebody to call, get you energetic, get you pumped up so that you can go kill it the next week. And the fifth and final person for me was a financial advisor. Hey, how long is my road? And more importantly, what do I need to do? This will also, when you set yourself a timeline, you might
Right.
not hit the timeline, but you might come very close, because once you get there, you will start to do things. You'll force yourself to do things because, hey, my road, I mean, that's the stuff that I did. Is I set myself the second time a road, 6 months, I got to find a job. If I don't, we're living in a different situation. And
Right.
ironically enough, 5 months in 2 weeks, I got an offer.
That's sweet. And Joel says, right, network makes the dream work. That's right, Joel. And I look at, and I say this with being on LinkedIn, is everybody on this panel over here has been putting comments. We're all good friends and colleagues. So everybody, what's nice about with LinkedIn is I could reach out to many people if I had a problem, and I'll be able to just talk that problem out. For them, might be from a VP and staffing that's already been there. You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm able to reach out, ask the question, "Hey, how would you handle this? How would you handle this?" You know,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it works. You know, it really works. What made you write Hired?
because I was really frustrated with the millions, and what the Rock say, the millions of people that gone through this whole process and never wrote a book from the time you started or in job transition to the time
Right.
you land. There's books about networking, there's books about how to interview and so forth, but not all the things, including the emotional aspects. How do I control this emotional roller coaster ride of emotions? Because you will be up and down, and more down than you are up, just
Right.
throughout the day.
That's awesome. One question I get asked a lot, and I wish I really could tell the answer is, and maybe I could, is ageism.
Yeah.
I get asked that a lot. I get messages from people on LinkedIn, Dave, what would you do? And sometimes I don't know everything what to do. I don't.
I love the question, because you know what? We've been told all our lives to act our age. Well,
Right.
if you show up in interview like you act your age, guess what? People are going to say, well, this person's going to retire in a year or two, the way they sound, right? So I tell people, there's a lot of things that, I tell people, maybe you want to cut your hair, that you want to change something about yourself that makes you
Right.
look better, that helps you, with your confidence, etc. All those things will help you eventually, right?
Just
And
to
yeah.
no, I can.
Imposter
That's what I said. They
syndrome.
ask, and I always like do they say, do you put all your jobs on the resume? And I'm like, I don't.
Well, I'm not an expert there, but what I have been told is, 15 years, right? Have 15 years on your resume.
Somebody on LinkedIn says the imposter syndrome. Daryl says, how do you see the shift in business shown in the PricewaterhouseCoopers 2030 future of workforce, stating that by 2030, 50% of the workforce will be contract, temp, gig, essentially shifting people to self-employed?
Yeah, that's a big push. I mean, and I think, it's also an opportunity for folks who may be in the upper echelon of 55 plus to utilize their knowledge and experience. Maybe somebody's not going to pay you that $250,000 or $300,000 job anymore, but you know what? 2 or 3 companies will pay a little bit of it, and you'll probably make more than you would with one job, and you're using your experience, and also you have the flexibility. So I think to his
Flexibility
point, yeah, I mean, I think as we age, our whole, our whole outlook on work changes, right? And I think a lot of the younger people, I mean, they ask more intelligent questions on interviewing process than I ever did, right? I mean, it
No,
was just
right.
like, when do I start and how much do I make? I mean, here they're asking
But
about culture, when's the last time your boss got upset? How did they approach that type of stuff?
no,
It's like, wow.
we're gonna ask Joel for that. That's our second show is interview questions, and it's on Thursday. We did a first show, and I got a book on Amazon from from an author I had on, Paul Falcani, here in California on the show. And some of the questions, if I was asked them, I don't know if I could answer them right away. I'd have to sit there and think. Give me 10 minutes. Well, yeah, let me think about it.
Well, ChatGPT is definitely coming up, and it's also an opportunity to help people in job transition. Help you to develop a cover letter, a really good cover letter. It also will help you redesign your resume. It also help you prepare questions, like say, here's a job description. What are the top 10 questions that might be asked? That helps you prepare. So like I said, when I was in first job transition, like most, it's like, okay,
Right.
I've been long, I can't afford much, so I found a lot of ways to do very to little cost, and it's all in the book.
I am shocked. I was like thinking, what AI with yourself. I'm thinking, all right, well, George, is George for AI or not? But the way you spoke, you're kind of like me.
Yeah.
You hear different things. I'm excited for it. And hear me out on this. I like it because I think it's going to help me with my work. It's going to help me with the shows. It's going to help me do things as a tool. I'm not going to use it because, like, I can tell when some of my friends do a post. I'm like, that's AI.
Yeah.
You can just tell, and you're like, you know what?
Well,
But
there's no heartbeat in it, right?
no. What are your thoughts about that, George? What is
Posts, no. I mean, to me, posts are basically, you're speaking from the heart. So
right?
I think it's important. But I think, from a resume perspective, you want to be the best candidate. And sometimes you're not articulating it enough. And once you turn around and pull the job description, the AI will actually tell you, do you know this? And you're like, oh yeah, I do know this, but I didn't have it in my resume, right?
Yeah, and that's what when I tell people about doing it. Everybody talks about expensive resumes and all this. They spend a lot of money and
Resume,
and
I'm gonna hate to hit some of your viewers who might be resume artists and stuff. It's the last thing. To me, if you're doing great networking, all my jobs, the last 3 or 4 jobs I have is all through networking.
Right.
Jobs never been posted, right? And it's all through networking, and the resume is the after thing. Oh, by the way, send me your resume. It's like, well, I'm already in, right?
for that part. I wanted to hit the next part here, and I gotta show it up here. This is the second book you got out: Ignite,
Yeah.
Engage, Retain. Talk to me. I love those words,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to even read more about it. What it's about, and what's the difference from Hired and this one?
Well, it's another process related. One of the things, as I started thinking about the last 10 or 15 years, all these posts about, excuse me, let me get a drink of water here. All these posts about, people not engaged. Engagement in employees are at the lowest level. Well, I'm sure like you and myself, we've come behind some, let's say, less desirable leaders. And what I found, it's the leaders that are not engaged, not the employees. So the leaders need to make sure that they understand the people's goals, objectives, desires, those types of things, and also align those with the business. Gone are the days that anybody's going to come into an organization and say, I'll give you 20 years, right? Both ways. But if you can turn around and develop a succession planning for somebody for 5 to 7 years, that is a huge success, both in the business as well as the individual, showing that path. And so I reached out to more than 30 CFOs, CEOs, CHROs across the globe because I said, well, this is not just a problem in George's head. This is not just a problem in Minnesota. Is it a problem everywhere? And the response was, yes, it is. And more importantly, in the book, it identifies the things to look for and more importantly, what you can do to correct them. Because again, to me, culture change, no one likes change. No one. Even a CEO. You go to a CEO, oh, I want change. Well, let's go to your house on Sunday and change this. Wait a minute. No, right? See, so to me, but I think you can enhance everything. You can enhance everything.
So ignite, engage, retain.
Yeah, and retain your talent. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges. All these tech firms that were crying just 6 months ago about not being able to recruit and retain people. Well, the people who were leaving knew your culture. And guess what? Just 5 months later, you proved the culture out. You've laid all these people off.
All right, that makes sense. I like that. So ignite. I'm trying to think, what would they get out of Ignite, Engage, Retain? What is somebody going to get out if they purchase that book?
Helps you become a better leader. If you're starting a job, it'll help you a lot to kind of set a baseline and more importantly, develop an even better culture. Again, you don't want to change anything, but you always want to enhance. And
Enhance.
everybody's willing to enhance. I'm willing, but
Like that.
don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Don't tell me
Right.
everything's bad here, right?
Rob asks, is there such a thing called the perfect candidate? Wow, that. Phew. I,
I
I,
don't know, but you can get pretty close sometimes, right? It's all in the process, and it's all in the way that you answer the questions.
right. And then Daryl, you should interview David Fano at Teal. The AI read the job description, help generate the resume all for free. See, Daryl's on it. I wouldn't even know who is David Fano. Is he at
We're
Teal?
all writing them down, and he's going to be seeing us all. Take a look at his LinkedIn profile.
There we go. Um, I wanted to ask you another thing. We talk about when you said about practice self-care.
Yeah,
Another one was embrace the growth
important.
mindset. Embrace the growth mindset. Surround yourself with positivity and celebrate the small victories.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the thing that I learned from my dad was in eighth grade. Yeah, I mean, he had an eighth grade education. My mom, ninth grade education, right? So, like you, I had to find a better way, right? And the better way for me was to jump in the military. But one of the
Right.
things that he told me that has been very, very inspirational to me was, you know, George, doesn't matter what position or wherever you're at in your life, be careful pointing the fingers because three point back at you. So you always should self-reflect. What is
Right.
the situation teaching me? And then when I was in my first job transition after 3 months of frustrating not knowing this process, that's what I did. I looked in the mirror and I said, what is this teaching me? What am I going to learn? And more importantly, when I started to really be thankful for the things that I have and not the things that I haven't, and more importantly, give thanks to those who are helping, I mean, my whole outlook really changed.
Right. George, I have a person here. It says, what advice do you have for someone who gets the last stage of interviews frequently but can't land the job?
You have to create a 90-day plan. I mean, even senior vice presidents of sales and marketing are not doing this. And they're like, I'm always getting to the altar, but I'm not getting married, right? And I'm like, well, are you doing a 90-day plan? You've talked to all these people, right? You've got some sense of what the day is going to look like. You've got a job description. You should present a 90-day plan, right? How are you going to attack?
Now,
And you
on your
always,
book, right, George, that's hired
yep,
if
that's
that's
an
all
iron.
broken down. And I
Yep.
want to show everybody again real quick. This is the book from hired. Let me take this one part out of here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Comments. I just want to take that out of there and just show the book again so they can see that. So this is the book everybody hired that George is talking about that he wrote. So hired, cut your career search time in half. There you go, George.
And I've got more than 70 articles on my LinkedIn profile that I talk about job transition. You can sign up and subscribe for those. I think one that's probably really great to turn around and reach out and really expand your network, even if you got a small network, is what I wrote about a year ago. It's called the 55 to 50 principle. It's really kind of taking your high connections and using their connections to really catapult you into a next echelon of networking.
Too. And so when you talk about the the 90-day plan, how do you break it down? Like when you say 90 days, like are you talking about again
Yeah.
networking
First,
again?
what you're going to do for example, from my perspective as an operations, I'm going to be pretty much responsible for a lion's share of the business, right? So, people, process, you know, policies, those types of things. What am I going to do in the first 30 days? What am I going to do in the next 60 days? And what am I going to do in the next 90 days? And I always tell people, you know, tell the hiring manager, this is something that we can turn around and adjust my first week when I start here. Because again, most businesses don't do a really great job, if at all, on onboarding. So if you've already
No, I
developed
know.
a 90-day plan, bingo, who are they going to pick? They got these 3 or 4 resumes that they're interviewing for final round, and then there's an imaginary stack over here. If you're not feeding into that every time and leaving something with them, then they only go by the last person they maybe saw, or maybe George wore a red tie today, and I like red ties.
Could it be something even though they're experienced or are they saying things? Sometimes you say things wrong. I mean, I guess it breaks down
No,
to
I always, I mean, I pretty much, if you've had a couple of interviews, you're alluding to, your final round, you've got a good sense of the culture based on the questions you've asked and the people. You can always just say, this is really something I took into consideration in all the interviews. I'm really excited about this opportunity. And more importantly, I outlined a 90-day plan. Now, this is high level, it's a draft. We can adjust it on my first week, but I just wanted to leave it because I'm really interested in working for you.
and working there. I wanted to tell everybody also when George says he has another on May 27th. You do it at 10
Yeah.
a.m. Central Time. It's free,
Yep.
and connect with George and look on LinkedIn. You're going to see this, and that's how they sign up, George. Or
Yep. They just reach out to me and I'll send them the link. It's called Kick Off Your Job Search.
all right, so there's a suggestion there for everyone. How do companies do this when they continue to be removed middle management, leaving ICs and upper management, as well as small business, which does not have the building of people opportunity?
How companies do this? As far as, I'm assuming the 90-day plan.
Yeah, I would think. I'm trying to think of that. That's what Daryl's talking about here. How do companies do this when they continue to be removed middle management? I don't think that's about that.
Right.
Daryl, if you want to really reiterate on that part there,
Yeah.
we can bring it back up. But like I said to everybody on May 27th, and you said you do them almost like every 2 weeks, George?
Yeah. Every 2 weeks on a Saturday. Because
On
what
Saturday,
I realize is that what people don't forget, actually do forget, is that people in job transition, their mind's always, when am I going to find a job? And Saturdays and Sundays come, everybody who's working goes to their families and everything else. We're still stressing out. Are we going to find a job? Are we going to get that offer next week? What do I need to do today?
Yeah, and the weekends, like you said, sometimes when they hang out, I know that's a big thing on LinkedIn. You see about everybody sits on a Friday, then you don't hear nothing all weekend,
Yep.
and I get that. Some of the other things that I've always been asked is overqualification for available job roles. When you say people, when they apply for the jobs, they feel they're overqualified and they can't even get an interview for that. Is there a certain way to listen? If you're really short on a job search and you've gone those months, and sometimes people take jobs that they don't really want to take, but they have to because they have to pay their bills.
Call it a filler job. It's a
What's
filler
that?
job. It's a filler job.
Yeah. Is there something that you can? How do you back yourself down a little bit? Like if you really
Well,
want that job and you're overqualified.
Well, I
If
think
that
you
makes
need
sense.
to look at it. You got to, first of all, be wanting to do it, right? Not just a filler job, right? Like I kind of jokingly stated.
Right.
But it's something that you're interested in because, again, it's going to come off whether you're interested or not, right?
Right.
And so I think it's important for you to make sure that you do that and then look at the job description and align your skills to that job description. Maybe it doesn't, maybe you've got a master's degree, but it doesn't require a master's degree. So
Right.
why is your master's degree on your resume, right? But back to the earlier comment it just brought up again is ageism. I wanted to kind of close that one
Yeah.
out. It is ageism. It is out there. But the fact is that it's out there more importantly if you play into it. Again, you really need to maybe act a little younger, look a little younger, feel a little younger, right? Because
Yeah.
again, it's all in the way that you come across because what you're doing, just like networking and interviewing, is you're trying to develop a relationship. They're going to ask you hard questions, but after the hard questions, they're going to want to know, can I go to dinner with this guy after work or this girl, right?
Right. And that makes total sense too, because I get what you're saying. If you're not full of energy when you come into an interview and you could sit there and say, wow, this person's been doing it for 35 years. There's no, I don't know, spunk, something that jumps out.
Well, I've been told to tone it down, and I've also told it to be lifted up. But you know what? One of the things I've been saying for 7 years: energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude. Number one thing. If you don't got it, go find it and get it.
You don't have to go. I like that. What do you feel? What are your thoughts on the video resumes and screening?
Yeah, I guess if it's clear and concise, because again, we live in an attention deficit society, right? People are always listening to respond, not to truly listen. So if you're going to send me a video resume that's going to be 5 minutes, no one's going to listen. But
Right.
to me, if it's a minute long and you can hit high topic or points based on either what the
Exactly.
business is looking for in the job description or what you've been able to uncover, on the internet to hit a target, I think that can help tremendously.
See, that's what I feel. I mean, I get a lot of pushback on that because everybody says being biased with the way you look or anything like that. And I always say, listen, your bias, if there is bias, as soon as you walk into that door and you're in a meeting, you're going to have bias. You know, it's going to be the same. I mean, I just think if you, like you said, you have that attitude, a good attitude, positive, you know, you're upbeat, you're not just low keyed and trying something different because you even said if it's not working,
Right.
there's a reason why, and you need to really look at yourself. And is that
Always self-reflect. Don't turn around and start casting stones or whatever.
yep? And Daryl has one more here. We'll see this one. The question was on the second book and getting management to engage and inspire people. Book by Art Williams, Pushing Up People, comes to mind. My experience is that those up don't reach back to build people.
Well, they're not. That's the difference between their title. They're managers. Leaders' sole responsibility is to reach down and lift people up. And if you aren't working with that person, you need to turn around and look for else. Maybe you need to look elsewhere in the business. Maybe you need to look elsewhere outside the business. But again, I think, this is where I think a lot of the younger crowds are having a lot more success because they're not going to deal with it. They've seen what businesses and companies have done to their parents and their uncles and their aunts or whatever. 20 years and boom, they're out the door.
They're out the door, and that's true. I got one more for you. What kind of what would you suggest or ideas for the graduating class coming up? I mean, you see on LinkedIn, people coming up, the new, coming out. Everybody's graduated. What in the
I try
world
to tell
do you
this.
tell them?
I try to tell these my kids. They didn't listen to me very well, but I'm like, at least network with a doctor, a lawyer. I think there was two other ones. Because you'll always need those types of people in your life, good, bad, or indifferent. You will always need those people, right?
You're always going to need them.
But I think the thing is the younger crowd really needs to understand networking does work, and a lot of the people are in that next 2 levels of age above. So those are going to be looking. It's not going to be the kind of the overall social media and I'll post it or I'll text you or whatever. It's like this. How can I help you? How can you help me?
That is awesome. I'm going to have George back on the show again. I'm definitely good because I tell everybody, George, I got enough notes here. I think I spent all day, on there doing different things, but you have so much knowledge, and that's what I liked about you. Here's the one book again that he has everybody, George C. Murry right here, Hired, Cut Your Career Search Time in Half.
Well, that's what happens when you get fired a couple of times.
Is that what happens?
After the first time, you just got to move on. That's one of my topics is that's why the windshield is twice as large as the rearview mirror. Move forward.
I love it. I have that written down here too, how you said that. Right here. You got it. They're about the, right here, the best song you put, with years of coach. Wait a minute. I'm going to find it. It's in here. It does say that. I have that on here. I know I have it.
Well, it's under my LinkedIn profile. I talk about it. It's hey, the windshield is twice as big as a rearview mirror. Move forward, get hired.
And get hired. And the other book here again, Ignite, Engage, Retain Everybody. It's just a great. I'm excited. I'm going to order the Hired one first. I got to do one at a time. I'll be going crazy.
Well, it's a quick read. It's 132 pages because no one wants to read an encyclopedia.
Oh, I didn't even think of it. That's all it is. That's it.
That's
not bad.
And I'm a slow reader, so it took me 2 days to read the book. So, somebody who reads faster than I can get it done in a day. I've had a lot of people read it done in a day.
Nice. And George, if you want to take this last minute, talk again about Hired, Ignite, what you do. And I just think a lot of people should connect with you, and they're going to learn a lot.
Well, one of the things that I found very successful in my first job transition is I met so many great people that helped me in my darkest time. And I could never forget that, right? And so the ironic thing is the people that you think will help you are not. It's the ones that you would never guess. And a lot of those people really became my friends and, again, my personal board advisors. And so I always tell people, I'm there for you. I offer services, but I'm not a gouger. I want to help people. I want to help people get hired because the more people get that and they get, I can't tell you, the last person that told me, they're like, George, I paid $15,000 for an outplacement firm. Then I spent 1 month in your book and I learned more in that 1 month than I did. Time. Yeah, exactly.
See, oh, geez, that was my fault. That's what I guess you get when you do stuff like that. You can pick it up and read it and learn something real fast. But I want to thank you so much. I'm definitely going to have you back on because I know I got
Well,
like
David,
about
I really
30 or 40 more
appreciate the
questions.
time.
No, I do. And everybody, I want to thank for being on the show tonight. And I'm going to get George back on in a couple weeks here, and we're going to have another show on it. So thank you so much, George. I'm going to talk to you right after this video.